You need to have a separate set of people with a right focus on these territories and someone who understands these territories, from the ground on. You're listening to 15-Minute Mastery, a show that empowers you with insights from leading iGaming experts to enhance your personal or business performance. The show is brought to you by the AI-powered data analytics platform Blask and supported by tech-driven affiliate and media company Already Media, Lala Stars, the leading casino partnership program, and Next.io, the world's iGaming community.
Hello everyone and welcome to 15-Minute Mastery. Today, Dmitry will share his expertise on entering new markets as an operator. Dmitry spearheaded super successful launches of an operator brand in emerging markets and is here to share some insights from that experience. Welcome back, Dima. We're excited to learn from you again today.
Hey John, thanks a lot for having me.
Awesome. So let's start from the very beginning. When you're looking to enter a new market as an operator, what are the factors you're looking at before deciding whether it's the right opportunity for your brand?
Right. I think probably market research as the approach in general is still very undervalued by both operators and B2B platform or game providers. Because if you think about the cost for entering a new market compared to the cost of a proper 360 market research, they're like incomparable in terms of the spend and the amount of hours you need to be able to allocate in both. So I think my first one is looking at the research, looking at the things like how complicated is the market, how competitive is the market, how saturated is the market, the size of the market, dynamics of the market, right? I keep hearing the stories about people like entering, for example, Nigerian market. Why? A, because it's a big market. B, it's a big market from the population perspective, from GGR, like all the angles. But no one really gets into the very details, like the market is dominated by a few very strong operators for a very long time, and it's very hard to fight against it. The market is not growing for the last few years, so you essentially not fighting for the new market share, but you're fighting against the existing operators and the market share and the loyal user bases. So I think probably like the very first step before even considering entering a new market should be a proper research. And then looking at the things like, how well like your platform is adjusted, and many others. But I think market research is my answer here.
Mm-hmm. And once you've conducted that market research and you've decided that this is a good opportunity and it's the right fit for your brand, what essential groundwork and preparation do you do before you actually take those first steps?
Yeah, so I think during the very first research stage, you should answer one very important question: whether you, as the brand, as the product, and even as an approach on the ground level, is actually fitting within the market. Because imagine you've been the affiliate-driven brand since day one, and you entering the brand-led market. You need to be investing into brand, into sponsorships. And if it's totally against your approach as the business, and this is not how you've been making money previously, then probably it's not the right market for you. So I think when entering the market, essentially when you've selected this market, you really need to localize your product. And I think the localization for many comes only from the language perspective, but localize the product comes from the sports perspective, which sports you need to have, prioritize the sports, play, and understand the way how the market works in terms of the odds, the markets which you need to have, etc. Which games and casino providers you need to have and integrate and prioritize, in your product, how fast you need to reply on your customer support messages, right? So, and many little things like this. So localization means like a proper 360 adjustment towards the market on the product end and on the business end, right? When you think about, the things I mentioned, marketing. If this is a very brand-led and marketing, like a brand marketing heavy market, then probably your affiliation strategy is not going to work because there is no affiliates, for example. There is no way how you can fight against the existing, dominance of the brands in certain markets. And even sometimes if you're like a very affiliate-driven brand and affiliation is the way how the market exists, will you be able to compete with existing operators? Will you be able to outbid them? So I think, once you've decided which market to enter, you need to localize your product. You need to localize your business strategy. You need to adjust your business strategy and to be able to build like a proper business model, which is giving you the answer on the most important questions. And one of them is like whether your business will be able to pay back and whether it will be sustainable and scalable in these markets.
Mm-hmm. And that leads very nicely into the next question. So before, you really stress the importance of treating this new market entry as a separate business unit, right? Um, why do you take that approach? You've already mentioned some that are obvious, but what other advantages are there?
Yeah. I think you could divide it into two parts. Whether you enter in a market as the new business, which is, entering the first market, which is the new market for them essentially as well, or you are as an existing business expanding into the newer territory. So I think these two are quite different. Because if you launch as the new business, then it's actually a new business. So you just treat it as the new business. So in that case, it's quite easy. But then just imagine you are, I don't know, let's mention like some of the biggest boys in the market. You're Bet365, you're Botana, you're, I don't know, someone really big. Imagine you're having a market where you're a dominant power for many years. So just imagine the same person who dominated Greece or UK now has to launch Mozambique, now has to launch Colombia, some small markets where there is no footprint, there is no penetration, the product is not localized. This is where attention and focus is being insanely diluted. And even if you think from the perspective of benchmarking, if you think from the perspective of setting up the right KPIs, this is where your team and someone who is running, UK and Colombia at the same time will never be able to, meet the right KPIs, because the uplift of GGR in Colombia in the first few months could be like tens of thousands of dollars, which is a fraction of your GGR in some of the markets where you've been operating for years. So the reason to treat it as the separate business is because you need to have a separate business benchmarks and targets. You need to have a separate set of people with a right focus on these territories, and someone who understands these territories, from the ground on, probably maybe even some local people, from within these markets. And if you think about the business overall, 10,000 euro on the overall $100 million plus business will sound like like a fraction of the total revenue. But for the market overall and compared to the market size, this could be a great potential start of something big, right? So this is why I think this should be treated as the separate, like a business unit, and the separate even like a strategy in terms of the entry of the market. Because even if you think about some of the world's largest brands, the companies like, Starbucks, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and, many others, they also kind of apply the same approach of a localized, kind of a strategy. So I don't think this is where we as an iGaming need to come up with something new and tailored specifically for the iGaming. This is where I'm a fan of like looking at some other niches and to be able to extract the best practices and apply them towards the iGaming.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've seen how the NFL, obviously heavily based in the USA, and they're trying to penetrate the UK. They've done exactly the same thing, rather than try to operate their minuscule, by comparison, UK operations from America, right? So,
Yeah.
talking about building up the team for that business unit, what are the key hires you would initially look to make to ensure entry is successful, and what particular characteristics are you looking for?
hmm I think my number one choice would have been, someone like as a managing director or a head of the region, because essentially you need to have someone who will be aggregating everything you got within the organization. You need to have someone who will be the main point of contact for affiliation, brand marketing, research. So I think this would have been my number one preference. And I've seen other big companies like Betson, for example. I saw these guys are doing the same, like, hiring these guys before opening like a new market. I think that's the right strategy. So in terms of who is this guy or a girl, and I think this is where it comes down to one very specific thing. You need to have local experts, and even sometimes like I wouldn't care much about the iGaming experience, because if you think about some of the newest markets, especially tier 3 markets, like we mentioned, Latin America and Africa previously, I think this is where the iGaming and the iGaming knowledge is really, really young and new. So this is where my preferences would have been around people from fintech, like banking experience, from telcos, from e-commerce. So someone who used to run and build online businesses before. I mean, if you're an online brand, right? Obviously, if you're launching like a brand with a heavy offline presence, then you probably need to look into someone who's done it previously. But I think any industry which has like a heavy digital footprint, which has like a similar marketing mix for the iGaming, sometimes even similar user behavioral patterns. Maybe this could be Nutra, maybe this could be dating industries, but something where you can acquire both local knowledge and acquire understanding about the performance of certain marketing channels in the region. And I would have been looking for someone slightly, I'd say, inexperienced compared to the role you're hiring him for. So let's say you need to hire like an MD, right? But you should look for someone who is like less senior than that. So then you give a person a chance, and then if he's the right person with the right kind of grindy and entrepreneurial mindset, this is where the person will really kill, just to be able to prove that he's the right person. So I think this would have been my choice.
Awesome. And this next question is probably one we could do an entire episode on. But how do you define which marketing strategy to adopt when you're entering the new market? How do you find the right mix also between brand and performance marketing?
Mm-hmm. I think it all comes down to the very first question you asked, like a research, right? If the market is very young, this is where there is no way you can find a decent affiliate in this market to be able to drive most of your performance marketing. This is where you need to invest in brand marketing to both build the category in the market and to grow and educate the audience, right? So this is where my marketing mix and the brand performance kind of a split would have been heavily driven by brand marketing. But if the market is very competitive, if the market is very advanced in both affiliation, performance marketing, and I can enter the market with the help of affiliation without exposing myself to like a heavy brand marketing spend, this would have been my preference. So I think the research and the cost of user of the market research done at the very beginning will be able to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars spent in the wrong market and mix categories, where even a big marketing spend will never deliver the expected results only because of the market reality. So only because of the size of the market, and maybe even like I mean, this is quite obvious, but even because of some tax issues in the market, where only because of the local tax regime, there is no way you could pay your marketing spend, because usually the brand marketing spend is something where you really need to be spending for a while and expecting this to be paid back in a few years time. So like as you mentioned, this is a very complicated and very deep question where I think my first take would have been looking at the marketing mix in the market, understand the competitors they spend, understand their marketing mix, understand the market potential, the market complexity, competitiveness of the market, the speed of the growth of the market. I think Brazil is one of the best examples of how a research which is done like 6 months ago doesn't matter anymore with the regulation coming, right? And even now, like I would have mentioned that even now, like a research done 1 month ago mostly will be outdated the months after, because the changes of the market are very dynamic. No one knows what's going to happen with the offshore. No one knows what's going to happen with the new market entrance, spend, how the taxes will affect your whole P&L, etc. So I think it all comes down to the research and to understand how to properly use that research in order to be able to, put it into your strategy and then build a marketing mix on top of that.
Awesome, Dima. Great insights as always. And to everyone watching, please like, comment, subscribe to catch future episodes.
Thanks, Arjan.
Cheers.